Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly Q&A video / podcast. If you're on YouTube right now, links in the description to access this on a bunch of podcasting platforms. I don't know if all of them, but it also has an RSS feed. So I guess if you really want to do the sort of work yourself, you can, I think with an RSS feed, you can add it to basically any podcasting platform to show up.
Right.
Anyways, I don't think we have any housekeeping.
Season 10, episode 10.
Season 10, episode 10. That's a good point.
That's the housekeeping.
No,
we've been a bit more sporadic, I guess, with the Q&A. I feel like it's interesting watching what's happening because there's an inexplicable fluctuation in our ad revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably only interesting if you do YouTube. The ad revenue, the amount is still pretty small, but it's interesting that when we do less of the Q&As, the revenue actually goes up. And part of me wonders if that has to do with the consistency of the audience, where when it's only a video once a week, and the audience is more consistent, that we actually get more exposure because of it, as opposed to when we have a sort of alternating videos where there's one that's a lot less popular, and one that's more popular.
Yeah, it's hard to say because with, I think, almost every content creating platform, that rewards creators, they're all to some extent, the success of people on it is to some extent based off of the algorithm, right? And how you get eyeballs on what you're doing.
Right.
And the interesting thing is that people don't really know how it works. You know, some people have done A/B testing. Some people, it's their jobs to try to find stuff to, you know...
Exploit
the algorithm.
Right.
But nobody really, truly, specifically understands how it works. And if anybody does, it's a really small slice of people. Because the second you have, you know, public knowledge exactly how your algorithm works, then what would happen is that people would make content specifically and only to take advantage of the algorithm. And then what you'd end up with is a bunch of, like, entirely valueless slop, right? So, like, let's say this is not real, but let's say, for example, YouTube, it turns out, if you upload a video that's exactly 9 minutes and 15 seconds, that it gets sent to everybody, right? For some reason, that, like, length of video is so much more popular.
Right.
If people knew about that, then all of a sudden, every video would be 9 minutes and 15 seconds, right? And that would be the only thing that would be sort of populating people's feeds.
So is it that the content would be valueless or it would be homogenized? I mean, I think there'd still be some stuff that would be okay, but they would be forcing themselves into that little...
Yeah, so in that way, it would be homogenized. When I'm talking about valueless, I'm thinking more about, I see content on some other platforms like TikTok, right? Where there are TikTok lives that are just so weird. Have you seen this trend of what's called NPC live streams or no?
No.
So, and I want to be clear when I'm talking about this, that I'm not insulting the people doing this, that there's, like anything else, that there's like a talent and a skill to it, to do it. But it's these people who are, the way TikTok live streams work is that there are coins that you can purchase on TikTok and then spend on gifts for live creators.
Okay.
And the gifts are all the way from, like, the cheapest end, which is just like an emoji that pops up on, like, right above, like, the chat bar to indicate that you've sent a gift and the number that you sent, all the way to different sort of visual effects. So there's some that will, like, make a head tracked, like, filter appear on, like, the creator for a few seconds. And so basically there are these gifts that are visible to both all the other audience members and to the creator. And so these NPC live streams have people sitting on the TikTok live for several hours, and all they're doing is reacting in a canned way to every single gift that's sent to them.
Okay.
So every time somebody, like, sends them, like, a rose, they'll say, "Thank you for the roses." Yeah. Okay. And so it's this, like, loop of, like, watching these people, like, over and over again, like, replicate the exact same reactions. And it's like, if you give me money, I will respond.
Dance like a monkey?
I will respond in exactly the way that, you know, the money that you sent me indicates in the shared language we have of it. And so it's called NPC because they're acting like they're not, like, real people, right? Like, they're just, like, input-output machines. And people have done variations of this. There's some that are, like, relatively more interesting or engaging for one reason or another. Some people have went, like, a really funny route with it.
Right.
There's this one guy who dresses up in a big hot dog costume, and he does the NPC live stream thing, but his whole thing is he holds hot dogs in his hands. He's in a big hot dog costume, and he makes obscene gestures and noises, and he talks about glizzies the whole time.
So with or without buns?
With buns, they're like squeaky toys, I think.
Okay, all right.
And so his whole sort of shtick is that there's some war going on, and it's the language of warfare, but then the actions are just like obscene and
Hot
goofy and
dogs.
ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, so I just watched the movie Accused. When you say ridiculous,
Yeah.
it started off. It had such potential.
Yeah.
If anybody has seen it and wants to comment, I don't want to do any spoilers here. I would be happy to have a conversation in the comments about this movie. There's a few things that bugged me so much because it had such potential, and the things that bugged me were not necessary. They could have done it in a way. So the idea is that it's normal. This is in the UK. There's a normal guy, and this isn't really a spoiler because it's listed in the description.
Yeah.
He gets accused of doing something social media.
Yeah.
And this is him trying to sort of dealing with the fallout and trying to defend himself.
Yeah.
Quite disappointed because it started off so promisingly.
Okay. Yeah, but so I guess the point is with these like live streams is that they are designed in a way so they're almost purely transactional, right? And there was one creator that did it really, really successfully, somebody named Pinky Doll. I don't know if she's the first creator to do an NPC live stream. But
what is it? Is a non-player character live stream? That's so then the reason why it's called that is because they are really just not. They're not acting with any kind of agency there.
Yeah, they're acting like NPCs.
Okay.
There's also like a whole sort of cultural thing that happened with the term NPC where people were using it as like a derogatory or insulting way of referring to people. And if you called somebody an NPC, it's like, you're not like a main character, you're not like a player, you're just
there's
an
not
NPC.
much to you.
And so it's tied up with like sort of Andrew Tate like Matrix sort of language, right? The idea that there's real people and there's NPCs and there's people coming after you. So it's tied up with all these sort of like problematic kind of, I don't want to say necessarily right-wing because I don't think it's all right-wing sort of creators that are like using that language, but very kind of like cult of self creators, I would say, in one way or another, which is individualistic if not like explicitly like right-wing politically, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyways, the point is that there are these streams, and all these streams have cropped up, and they're on TikTok for TikTok Lives. There tends to be waves where somebody does a stream, and it's successful, and then there's a huge number of copycats, and you essentially have what they've figured out is that somebody has figured out a model for success, right? For monetary success, for attentional success, for, whatever people are looking for on TikTok, and then a bunch of other people like copy it. And that's sort of the lighter version, because people don't really know how the algorithm works. So they see somebody being successful, and the only way that you can do it is by making slight variations on exactly the same thing.
I mean, we see this in so many other industries. I mean, the one thing that stands out when you say that, and the sort of comparison that jumps out is comic books in the late 80s.
Yeah.
There were two hugely successful comic book series.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns. Mm-hmm. And Watchmen.
Yeah.
And they were really well done, brilliantly written, and when people tried to copy the success of that...
They missed the point.
Badly. I mean, again, they had interesting things to say. Mm-hmm. They both happened to be super grim and dark.
Yeah.
And so people copied that by just doing a bunch of grim, dark stuff.
Yeah.
That wasn't very good.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that same kind of thing, right? Where people sort of try to guess at what makes it successful. I mean, this is what you see the studios doing, right? Mm-hmm. Where they do an imitation of whatever the last successful thing is.
Yeah.
I mean, the most obvious one is doing direct sequels. Yeah. But then they do things that are an imitation of it. And then they're always so surprised when it's not successful, or they end up missing out on, or they end up doing more of the same stuff.
Yeah.
When what ends up being successful next time is something that's different.
Yeah.
That's actually interesting and surprising, and they're missing. I mean, this is the whole point of the strike. I mean, the strike is over now. I guess that's what we should say. That's
big news, actually, is that there was a tentative agreement reached.
Right. Is that
with the WGA
there's
strike.
a lack of understanding, I think, on the parts of studios. When I read about how it works and how studio executives give notes to the people who create the movies and stuff, that they just don't have an idea of what really makes a good story, and they don't appreciate as much as they should how important it is to have the basic fundamental story to hang everything else on, like good actors, good directing, good costuming, all the technical stuff has to start with a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. No. So, anyways, I think we've sort of went away from the point, but I just think it's interesting seeing kind of the ways that people mold their content to fit within the system that is sort of giving vitality to it, right? Because the two things that you need for content is you need the thing itself, and then you need a way of getting it to the people. And most people are using whatever platform they're uploading it as one of like their primary distribution channels too.
Right.
So the functionally like what you make needs to be shaped by how it's going to reach people based off of what your goals are. And with most people's goals of like reaching more people, you see sort of like a spectrum where people either do totally their own thing and just trust and sort of hope, and people who seemingly are only doing content for the express purpose of reaching eyeballs. And I can't imagine that. I shouldn't say that there's nobody, but I can't imagine anybody specifically wanting to do like an NPC live stream as like the thing that you want to do most, right? As like your ultimate sort of like creative output and your reason for like making stuff being like this like one specific type of like engagement bait.
So the original point I was trying to make when I brought it up was it's interesting. Like I came this close to wanting to. I'm going to ask it anyways, but not seriously. To ask the question of whether people actually still want to see these Q&As once a week, because the numbers are low, but ultimately we're still going to keep on doing them because we've got patrons. And I think the original motivation of some of our patrons was explicitly to have this as a podcast where we make zero money. I mean, it's not even like we make a lot. We make like a couple bucks each of these Q&As. Yeah. But that it was explicitly so that it would come out be available as a podcast in a format that they wanted. Yeah. So they could enjoy it without having to do YouTube, and they could, because I guess besides not having any video they needed to watch, it was so that they could, I guess it's easier to listen to while you're doing other stuff on your phone. Yeah. Than it is to be watching a video and doing other stuff on your phone, right?
With YouTube, you can't actually watch it while you're doing other stuff on your phone.
No? No. You can't, it doesn't show up as a little thing on the bottom of your screen.
You need YouTube Premium for that. So you either need to have a monthly subscription, or you can't do that. But most podcasting apps let you play it under other stuff.
So, the point really is that it's not a legitimate question, because I don't think that the answer will change the outcome of what we're doing, because I think...
Well, yeah. Also, kind of like, for the amount of money that we're getting from it, who cares, right? As long as nobody's actively, like, angry about it.
I am just curious, because the problem, I think, now is that we've been doing this for so many years, and I was just looking at the numbers, like, in terms of the numbers of videos, we've been doing it for so long. I feel like I'm not sure exactly where this is going to take us, because I think we both recognize, at least, that this is not... There's no sort of goal in mind. We are basically where we are as... the thing.
It's just kind of a thing we're doing now.
This is the thing that we're doing. Yeah, no, it's a long rambling way to get to it, but that was just what occurred to me when I was looking at some of the numbers, because these last few months have been an interesting sort of experiment that's been forced upon us. Yeah. Because of our situation. But anyways, we should probably get back to
a question.
I think there's a few good short ones that we could address and have real answers for.
So there we go. Our first question comes from Joseph Stallone 6911. Which is just, there's so many things going on in that name. But they say, I just missed the Arkham Knight Batman pack. I've been waiting for that for ages. Saw it yesterday, said I'll buy it in the morning, and now it's gone. Do you guys know when possibly the next cycle for that pack is?
We don't know. It's interesting that some of the packs seem to follow the challenge cycle. And some packs seem to be on their own sort of... arbitrary, somewhere around 5 to 6 month cycle. Yeah. So this question was from a while ago, but if there's something that you missed, I think you really need to be playing around. A lot of the packs do come back. We haven't been tracking the packs the same way we've been tracking the multiplayer rewards and the challenge, but I think most packs seem to come around, at least the ones that are paid. Yeah. what we've lost are a bunch of the unpaid
The
packs.
cash, the in-app credit packs.
Yeah, the power credit packs.
Yeah.
So if you're patient and you're sticking around for the long haul, and I guess if you're really going to enjoy a game like Injustice, you have to be around for the long haul. Because what you'll miss, I mean, you still get the joy of, the combat, but the combat actually gets better when you lean into the collecting part, and the more you collect, the more you have, the more interesting the combat gets.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So there we go. Our next comment comes from Reaver534, and they say Antimatter, Sinestro, Batman, Gaslight, and Arkham Knight Harley Quinn on one team would be ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, so I think I'm going to read a little bit more into the question. I'm going to apologize to Reaver if they didn't intend this, right? But what it looks like they're talking about are the entry hazards.
Yeah.
And I'm going to borrow that term for some people who don't know. I mean, entry hazard is a Pokemon term, right?
Yeah, I think, well, I don't know if it's originally from Pokemon, but I know it from Pokemon.
And I know it from Pokemon too. So it's the idea that the opponent does something to make it unappealing for you to tag in.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like that, sort of not. Because Antimatter Sinestro doesn't have that, but what he can do that nobody else can, he's going to force you to tag out.
Yeah.
And so Batman Gaslight punishes you for tagging in by hitting you with like his little firebomb, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And causes you damage over time. And takes away Master's Death Card ability to give you power.
Yeah.
And Arkham Knight Harley Quinn has a chance, if she's off screen, to also punish you when you tag in against one of her teammates. So that's the idea. Mm-hmm. And it does seem like an interesting idea, but the problem is, I mean, it's sort of... Okay, so each of them by themselves are pain when you are playing a team that relies on tag-ins. So that's literally the most important gear in the game, Tanty Totem. But it's really hard to use all three characters on the same team and have them be all as annoying as they are when they're the only one on that team.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where, it's the opposite of, the sum is this. What is it? The sum is greater.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Right. This is the opposite. The whole is lesser than the sum of its parts. Mm-hmm. Because, all right, so Arkham Knight Harley Quinn's entry hazard damage can be blocked, but the fact that it counts as a tag in for Tanty Totem, if she's holding it, makes her more powerful. Mm-hmm. Right? So when you're facing a defense team, she happens to come in and then throw some damage at you. You block it, you don't block it, whatever. Sometimes when you don't block it, she does a huge amount of damage. That's fine. But it's not enough to knock you out. Actually, the opponent that's in front of you, if they're doing damage at the same time, that might be enough to knock you out, because you need to be blocking. If you're blocking, the kicker is that when she tags in, tags out, all of a sudden she's got a full bar of power. So then when she tags in properly next time, she's got 2 bars of power. Or if you tag in again and trigger her passive again, that's just makes it worse. So here's the thing, though. Antimatter Sinestro's ability to force out opponents to possibly trigger Arkham Knight Harley Quinn, that requires power. He needs to do a special one. So he needs to use a bar of power. And Gaslight Batman as an entry hazard works when he is the one facing the opponent. So ideally, he should be the one that's there in front of the opponent forcing the tag out, but it's not. It's Antimatter Sinestro. Mm-hmm. So you see what I mean? Like, there's a lack of synergy in their entry hazard sort of abilities. And so in a game where you get forced in and out, if you don't give, say, Antimatter Sinestro Tanty Totem, then you're struggling to give him enough power to actually trigger his special one to force the tag in and tag out. Yeah. And if Gaslight Batman isn't the one facing them anyways, it's not really that much of a big deal. I guess if you're going to make the argument is that both Gaslight Batman and Antimatter Sinestro, when they have Arkham Knight Harley Quinn on their bench, is going to make it unattractive to tag in and tag out. But I'll tell you what, Antimatter Sinestro, I'm happy to just take the block damage from Arkham Knight Harley Quinn. And if she's got Tanty Totem, guess what? Neither of the other guys do. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like it's not nearly as bad as when I'm just facing, say, an Arkham Knight team that has Harley Quinn and Arkham Knight Batgirl. I don't need another. Like, if you stack them all together, it's actually that one thing that makes them all really a pain to face makes them less of a pain to face together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. Do you want to move on to the next question?
Yeah, sure. I think we got some time.
So there goes. Sonic Nicholas 1995 says, are there characters that you like the look, but not their playstyle and or passive? For me, it's Red Sun Deathstroke and New 52 Nightwing.
So they look good, but you don't like their playstyle or passive. So that's interesting. Red Sun Deathstroke is probably a good example of where the passive doesn't really do much.
Yeah.
If anything, it actually makes it a little bit harder to play, right? Because Red Sun Deathstroke, I think his ability is plus whatever % of speed for each Red Sun teammate. And aside from Flash, like where you being faster lets you do the juggle, like the infinite, the basic damage juggle, most other characters I have, like I'm comfortable with certain speed with them, and it makes it harder to fight with them because then I don't have the rhythm right.
That's true. Yeah, it's interesting because I almost you kind of stop paying attention to how people look, for me anyways, unless there is something particularly entertaining about how they look, like or notable.
What's his
Beard
name?
Batman. Which one is it? Is it Arkham
stubble.
Origins?
It's one of them. I think it might even. I can't even remember now. But yeah, one of the guys that has stubble.
Like, you know, somebody who I think looks kind of silly. I think Boss Solomon Grundy, right, with his like top hat, looks a little ridiculous.
Is it a top hat? I don't know the hat's name.
Doesn't he have a top hat?
He has
or a stovepipe hat or something.
No, I think it's like
What is it?
It's one of those. Is it a fedora?
I don't think it's a fedora. But anyways, he looks a little silly, right? I don't think there's anybody who, but for the most part, when I'm looking at people, I don't go, yeah, maybe it's a fedora. It's like a fedora with a red band.
Yeah.
See, I never play him, so I don't, remember well enough.
Yeah.
But, so I think there are some characters like that. But for the most part, I think everybody kind of looks cool. I think with something like Injustice, it's more of an exception for anybody to look particularly awful, right? Because they're all designed to be at least interesting, right? You hope they're meant to look a little visually appealing.
That's interesting, because the one part I think where we miss out on a lot of the visual appeal, where they put in the creators have put in a bunch of time to make it more appealing. There's supers, and I almost never use the supers anymore.
That's true, because they're not worthwhile,
right? And so I miss that. I think it's a shame that they've set up the game now, as the game has progressed, that with the critical hits, the augmentation to boost the damage, that Special 2 is so much more effective than using a super. And so it means that the more you get to play the game, the more you want to play and win in the game, the less you are likely to see the visually appealing part of the super, because it takes a long time, but it's beautiful.
Okay, so you just brought us into the game, and it does look like it's a fedora with a red band. I don't know why I thought it was a top hat.
That would have been funny, because
he
would look
silly.
Goofy. He would have looked goofier.
He looks a little silly right now, anyway.
He would look goofier with his top hat.
I think a sort of desiccated zombie guy wearing a fedora also looks a little silly too.
And he's so meaty. If he's dead, he should be actually. I feel like he should be just bonier and emaciated.
I don't know anything really about Solomon Grundy and his backstory.
So I like Deathstroke. I think Red Sun Deathstroke is a good choice for somebody who looks appealing too. That I don't enjoy. It really comes down to who I don't like. I don't want to use to play with. Yeah. And I think it's a lot like, I think, the way, in my mind, that your standards of beauty are influenced by the people that you know.
Yeah, like the familiarity effect.
I don't even know if it's a familiarity effect so much as that there are people who have other good qualities, that they're a good person. Yeah. Then I'm more likely to think of them as visually and physically appealing. Like in other ways, it influences how my impression of them in other ways. Yeah. So you know how there's attractive people, and people assume that they're smarter than they actually are.
Yeah, pretty privilege.
And I think that it works the other way too, that there's people that are really nice. Yeah. Like kind people who have character traits that I appreciate. Yeah. Then I think that they're smarter and better looking than they actually are, and they have an influence on what my standard of intelligence or beauty or whatever that other quality might be. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean. I don't know. It's hard to say that level of metacognition of I think this about this person for this reason is, I think, relatively difficult in a lot of cases. So I don't know how if I personally like relate to that or not.
Right.
I'm sure it impacts me to some extent, but it's hard to know how much.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you thinking of specific examples? Are you able to sort of conjure in your head like,
yeah,
I know that I find this person like more attractive because
if we look at the characters, because when I think of all the characters in the games and the characters, I think, oh, that's an ugly looking character. That's an ugly looking design. They're all characters that I don't like to play.
Yeah.
So, I don't like the characters that I really don't enjoy playing with, and I avoided playing with them until we did this whole exercise with using the challenge characters. Like, I really didn't like Jon Stewart Green Lantern, and it was convenient that we actually skipped past him.
Yeah.
And that week that was supposed to be his.
Yeah.
Like, all the other characters that I think, like Solomon Grundy.
Yeah.
Boss Solomon Grundy. I don't like to play with him.
Yeah, it's true. And then the characters that you do like to play with, you'll make exceptions for. Like Containment Suit Doomsday, I think looks kind of
I love
weird,
how he looks now, though, but
it's funny. Yeah.
It's funny. Like,
if they look bad, it's funny.
Right.
And if they look good, it's
annoying.
It's good. Yeah, but if they're bad, then they look ugly or, whatever. You just don't care.
Okay, so it's like that, the whole exercise. I mean, we talked about the same idea, I think, with books, where if it's a book that you like, you make the effort in your head, even subconsciously, to make things make more sense.
Yeah.
So that if there's any sort of gaps in the logic, I'm more likely to watch a movie that I like for other reasons and say, well, in my mind, I can explain it away. This is why. You make allowances for it, right? Like that white space where there's nothing there and you're allowed to fill in it yourself. I have less patience for movies that I don't like, and I make assumptions that, the plotting was dumb, the whatever.
Yeah.
As opposed to thinking, oh, it's really cool. Oh, yeah, but that's not a big... That plot hole is not a big... Because this could explain it, and this could happen for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Because I think unless it's sort of explicitly part of the point or explicitly doesn't matter, in a lot of cases, something being like internally consistent and making sense is like a prerequisite for liking it more, right? And so if you go, oh, well, this thing didn't really make sense. If it was like a piece of media that you liked, you go, oh, no. If that's true, maybe I'll think it makes less sense and I'll like it less. So you want to either go, well, I don't care about that anyways.
Right.
Or you want to say, well, maybe it does make sense and I can like it the same amount and it's just this thing.
Right.
Whereas if there's a movie that you don't care about at all, you go, yeah. If I say, and it doesn't even make sense, it feels like you can point to something objective as a reason why it's not as good. Right? You go, this sucked. I didn't like it for all these reasons. And it makes no sense. They screwed up. They made a mistake.
I think that's an excellent point, actually, when you say it so bald face like that, where you say, well, it's something objective that you can point to.
Yeah.
That somebody doesn't look at you and say, well, your taste is just bad. It's just your opinion. So yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't considered that.
It's a way of kind of like externalizing your opinion from yourself. And so when it's something you like, you want to describe it a way to be almost like ego protective of like the thing that you like and like the quality of your own opinion.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of that, this is the perfect time to recommend something that I've just been rereading, which is Jade City, which is the first book of the Greenbone saga, and I'd forgotten how good it is. Mm-hmm. And so this rabbit hole that I've fallen down is that, I think I might have mentioned on this channel that I collect books. I collect some books. And I've been trying to collect less and paring down my collection, selling stuff off. And in this case, I'm doing the opposite now. There's going to be some limited edition versions. There was one Illumicrate limited edition that I picked up, and now Subterranean Press is coming out with one. They've announced it. They don't have a timetable on it, but gosh darn, if I'm not sort of anticipating the frenzy of trying to get a copy when it comes out and competing against other people. I'm reading the book again. I absolutely love it. Not only is it like amazing representation because it's Asian inspired fantasy. Yeah. Written by an Asian writer. And it is so good. Mm-hmm. Like interesting characters, interesting plotting. There's sort of it's not really a criminal family, but it's like that style of gangster kind of family where they've got power, they've got control. There's really cool fight scenes.
Like Mafia or Yakuza kind of.
Yeah. Magic.
Yakuza? I don't know how to pronounce that.
I think I was taught by a friend who's Japanese that you emphasize every syllable the same.
Yakuza.
But I don't feel like I have enough of practice to get the rhythm of it right. So this is the funny thing too. So I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
And I never learned in school. Canada. So for people who are watching the States, Canada, second language is French. I think Spanish is the most common second language that's taught in the United States because you have a large Hispanic population, right? Mm-hmm. So I've only picked it up from talking to a lot of people at work who speak. So I know none of the spellings. But the rhythms are easier. And I get a lot of people laughing because the words that I know reasonably well how to pronounce it because that's the only way I've learned it.
Yeah.
So it's funny, but that's the kind of thing where, I mean, you can intellectually understand that, okay, so you pronounce every syllable with the same stress, but until you've actually had a lot of practice listening to it, I think it's hard to actually do it. Because it's just weird, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of rules that you kind of know deep in your body. Just from like being exposed to a language, that having to learn them explicitly is just so much excess information that a native speaker never has to process, which is why, like, for somebody like learning English, there's all these mistakes that like I would have never thought about, right? Just because they have to have all of these rules and pieces of information in their head, and I just don't have to even think about it.
Yeah. I think we're running towards the end of it. I think there's one really quick question we could probably do.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so the next one comes from Shawn VN4BF, and they say, I took the Injustice multiplayer cycle rewards from Wiki and replaced the dates with 2023 and figured that the Tantu Totem will come out on November 30th to December 7th.
VN4BF, very nice for boyfriend.
I don't know. Is that what you think it means?
I don't know. I'm just putting, when you see letters like that, like breakfast, very nice for breakfast.
Yeah. I think this would be weird if somebody was trying to solicit finding like a partner on in the YouTube comment section with their name. I think that would be
that's funny.
Unlikely,
okay.
you know?
It's unlikely. So the answer actually is, I mean, it's a good effort. Definitely, I mean, part of what we talk about is that the cycles repeat. And they've been repeating for a while. So if it does repeat, Tantu Totem will actually be May 23rd, 2024. So we're still quite a ways away because it came out not too long ago. It's a 43-week cycle, so it's 9 weeks short of a year. So it should come out close to a year. 9 weeks is 2 months, right? 9 weeks is 2 months. So it should come out.
Approximately, yeah.
So 2 months earlier than the last time it showed up. And the last time it showed up was April. 27th, 2023. So the next time is, is it? Yeah, April 27th, right? I'm not losing my mind. I'm not. Yeah, April 27th. So the next time should be May.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah, so there we go. Okay, I think that's probably...
That's a good place to stop.
Decent place to end it. About half an hour of content is normally what we shoot for. So to finish up, I'd like to give a thank you to Eliza Content Caton. This is, the extra 30 seconds of content that you get for me reading out her name. If I didn't do it, where would all the content go? You'd have less content. And what a terrible thing that would be, to have less content.
What? I don't even know what you're saying anymore.
You have to find like another 30 seconds worth of stuff to do in your day. Or go to sleep 30 seconds earlier? I don't know. You need more content. Keep watching. Click around on find a new video, like them all, subscribe.
Okay, I know we were gonna stop this, but the idea of that, you know what is funny?
What?
Is that each day to me is so elastic.
Yeah.
I think there's so many different places where you waste 20, 30 seconds like that.
Yeah.
That you end up pulling from something else in the same day, and if you didn't have it, your day would still be the same. You just have different sort of content for the day.
Yeah.
And it would be different wasted time because there's that interstitial stuff that's just not very interesting to most people.
Yeah, there's even like this thing that people do where they'll like watch like YouTube videos or other things or podcasts on like 1.5 times speed, 2 times speed, 3 times speed, whatever.
Right.
And I never know exactly how to feel about it because sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes I want to watch stuff sped up, right?
Right.
But in the same note, if somebody's just, consuming stuff and they have like a certain amount of time to watch videos and they go, I just want to watch twice as many videos.
Yeah.
Some stuff I think I don't care if it gets sped up, and then some stuff totally does not lend itself at all to being sped up, and it like kind of destroys like the pacing and a lot of the other stuff about it. So I'm always like, on one hand I'm like, if you have less time, shouldn't you just watch less stuff? Like, you know, if you have 2 hours,
Yeah.
shouldn't you just watch 2 hours of stuff
Yeah.
instead of trying to watch 4 hours of stuff twice as fast? But
consume it in a way that was unintended, that the creators did not want.
But then also, who cares what the creators want? And sometimes I want to watch stuff faster too. So it's not even that I disagree with the people. It's just I feel weird about it. It's in a way that's hard to articulate.
I think you definitely miss out on stuff when you like. The whole effect is curated, right? Like they plan. It's all planned out. So I don't think it's bad that you do it differently. But then when you like it or don't like it, then you're not getting the experience. Again, doesn't mean the creators are right. I don't. Yeah, it's. Not
I don't know if we've curated this to be exactly 35 minutes to this point. If you watch us on 2 times speed, I don't know what you lose.
I think you lose nothing. I think you lose nothing because this is not. There's not like it's not as. It's not like poetry. It's not like a movie where there's the visuals, there's the.
It's not like a song,
right? Where there's a lot of stuff coordinating. Where when you change the pace, it's different, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where. Again, it's just I figured that if I didn't say it now, this would just get lost. Like it would never.
If anybody watches this at not 1 time speed, let us know how fast you watch this on. Or if you do watch it on 1 time speed, let us know. Anybody who's hit this point at the end of the video. And maybe we'll see that people who make it all the way to the end of the video skew more towards people who watch it twice as fast because they get bored of it much slower.
And I'm going to ask a favor of everybody who's watching because I know that it feels like when you're listening to us, it feels like it's maybe a conversation. And when people put comments responding to a question or something, they just put it without context. And when I come back to it and it's...
Nobody knows what it means.
No, they know. I have no idea. And I think, what are they doing? Like, what are they saying to me? And
but they go, that's a good point, but I think this. And I go, I don't know what my point was.
I don't remember. I guess I want to make sure that whoever's listening to this right now understands that we've done this for hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
And that it's all a bit of a blur.
Yeah.
And when it's removed by even like a couple days, I don't remember the exact point in this half hour that you're listening to that you respond to. So it's not that I don't appreciate it. I would actually like to understand better what you're saying to me. So please, when you comment on something specific happening in the video, give me a little bit of context, and I'm happy to respond and maybe understand it. And I want to have, like I said, I would be happy to have a conversation about Accused because I don't want to spoil it in this show because you haven't seen Accused, right?
No, I have not.
Yeah. Anyways, that was a long ending.
Even more content. You're welcome. Yeah. Okay. We'd also like to give a huge thank you to all the lovely folks who support us on Patreon.
That would be Alexis M supporting us on the Your Message Here tier, Michael Devries, Irvin Ruiz, and Hoshi127 who are supporting us on the credited level, and the list of other people you're seeing on the screen who have been generous enough to have supported us during the pandemic and what is looking now like local epidemics, because I think North America, we're getting some peaks now of COVID admissions to ICU.
That was my understanding too. Yeah. So there we go. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.